According to governments and media outlets around the world, there is a great deal of misinformation about COVID-19 in circulation. But what is the definition of this misinformation? And is misinformation information at all? If so, who decides that the information is misinformation? Today's video looks at several of the government agencies that throw around this term, but then struggle to define it. There has also been an interesting public disclosure surrounding the events leading to my termination as a TV presenter after allegations that I was involved in spreading COVID-19 misinformation.
So what is going on here exactly? What is defined as misinformation? If it's purely a medical professional's opinion, then is that in fact misleading or just a personal opinion?
What exactly is the meaning of misinformation? The Cambridge Dictionary states that it is wrong information or information intended to deceive. So you have to establish that there are incorrect statements and/or the promoter is trying to deceive others. In the COVID era, the groups using the term the most appear to be governments and their sponsored lackeys. Now we know from history that governments and their associated corporations are specialists in gaslighting not only foreign countries but also their own citizens to do all sorts of crazy things. However, now they expect us to believe that whistleblowers and individuals risking their careers are the ones behind the misinformation because...
What you talking about, Willis?
Anyway, when it comes to scientific information, some of these governments take it to a whole new level and proclaim you should trust only them.
We will continue to be your single source of truth.
If you start digging beneath the surface, however, you'll find that like SARS-CoV-2 itself, the Emperor doesn't seem to have any clothes. Here in New Zealand, we have government-funded departments and state-sponsored media that claim to be responsible for collecting, monitoring and educating on COVID misinformation. But when you try and pin them down on backing up their allegations of misinformation, it seems they all pass the buck and none of them can give you specific examples. I was first put on this trail by retired United States oncologist Dr. Anna Goodwin. Anna is a treasure who now resides in New Zealand, and she doesn't shy away from questioning the legitimacy of government departments and their actors. When Anna couldn't find any official definitions of COVID misinformation, she inquired to the Health Research Council of New Zealand. She pointed out to them that Health Minister Andrew Little announced today that your organisation has appropriated $42 million to fund 36 projects directed at addressing misinformation related to the COVID-19 jab, resulting in vaccine hesitancy by the New Zealand public. She asked the HRC, what is the definition of COVID-19 misinformation for the purposes of the allotment of funding to address this problem? They responded that the Health Research Council has not referred to COVID-19 misinformation and none of the funded projects use this term. Hence, we do not have a definition for it. Okay, so we head over to the Unite Against COVID-19 government website to see if we can get an official definition there. They claim to tell us how to recognise COVID-19 misinformation. In the section, Get the Facts, they point to websites you can go to, which are all government websites. Interestingly, they say you could try speaking with your health provider, but fail to mention that New Zealand doctors are threatened with investigation and many lose their licence if they don't universally promote the COVID shots. On that issue, NZD SOS wrote to the Medical Council of New Zealand way back in May, asking them to clarify their position on forcing doctors to promote the jab and what evidence they were acting on, but they never responded.
The Medical Council believes there should be unification in the medical world's messaging, but that's lumping all medical professionals into one basket and saying, you know, they all have to think the same, preach the same, which takes away their individual right to be honest about their own opinion. I actually respect the fact that not all medical professionals are exactly the same. It makes you think. It engages you to consider perspectives, to hear both sides of an argument. Surely it's more suspect when only one side of an argument ever gets pushed.
The government website goes on to tell us how to spot misinformation. They say to ask yourself where the information is coming from and what the author wants you to believe. It is a deceptive statement and is based on the strategy of trying to discredit someone without actually analysing the information itself. And again, it gaslights the public because the government is the one with the agenda. They want you to believe something and follow their policies, which are increasingly relying on coercion because people don't want to go along with their nonsense. They go on to suggest we read what trusted, reliable sources such as academics say about it. Firstly, they are talking about certain academics, of course, not the academics who have questioned what is going on and number in their thousands. Then the government misinformation page tries a little comedy when they say the mainstream media is another trusted source. The mainstream media have disgraced themselves during the situation as they are now nothing more than state-funded propaganda pushers. Like many places, the New Zealand mainstream media is no longer able to survive in the free market and relies on government advertising revenue and handouts. Dr. Michael Bassett, New Zealand's best-known political historian, recently commented that the government is trying to keep the media on side by overpaying them for printing the masses of COVID announcements. The expectation is that none of the media greedies will bite the government hand that feeds them. If my information is correct, it is corruption, pure and simple. In normal circumstances, there would be a rebellion. The government website goes on to advise us about reporting scams and misinformation and gives us a link to CERT NZ, which is the government's computer emergency response team. CERT alleged to provide trusted and authoritative information and advice while also collating a profile of the threat landscape in New Zealand.
Sure, Jan.
Goodness, how could we survive without these pervy nerds keeping an eye on the internet? They have their own little attempt at dark humour when they say every New Zealander has the right to freedom of speech. Challenging misinformation is a way to ensure New Zealanders have access to the facts. This is like something out of 1984. They are encouraging you to dob in others under the guise of freedom of speech so that other people's freedom of speech can be regulated. Despite claiming to be the collection agency for misinformation, there is nowhere on the site that explains what constitutes misinformation. That's why an official information request was put to CERT, asking what criteria does CERT NZ to determine whether any given report is in fact disinformation. And the priceless response was that, no, they don't determine those details. Instead, members of the public report potential misinformation and disinformation, and other agencies with relevant subject matter expertise can determine its accuracy, i.e. for COVID-19, the Ministry of Health. But this simply takes us back to that same loop that we entered into at the start with the Ministry of Health and government websites. Next, I listened to the promoted expert opinion of Professor of Health and Law, Cameron Stewart from the University of Sydney. He was interviewed on ABC in an episode titled Regulating COVID-19 Misinformation and Social Media Influencers. Unfortunately, again, he didn't really explain what the definition of COVID misinformation was. However, he made some chilling comments that I think are worth listening to.
We've been talking about science for the better part of 2,000 years. That's the way to have debates about the effectiveness of testing and treatment. That's the way that we can have conversations about the effectiveness of public health measures like lockdowns. Part of the problem that we're experiencing at the moment is that conversation was typically done in the context of academia and health science, biomedical science. But what's happening now with social media is that conversation is now happening outside of those realms, and the usual rules of communication and the ethics of communication aren't shared by some of these different fora. We're not seeing some ethical approaches to the spread of information.
You would hope that he was joking, but unfortunately he is being serious. The professor wants to limit the discussion to mostly government-funded academic stooges, as apparently they will act ethically, unlike the rest of us. It also seems strange that he says this as many of us are facing unprecedented censorship on the platforms he has problems with. Why does he think I'm posting this on Odyssey and not on YouTube or Facebook? The control of information in the hands of so few is a disaster, and it's unclear to me why the professor praises centralised and controlled scientific discourse. We reached out to him to get some clarification on his claims, but to date he has not responded. There was one highlight of the show when the interviewer may have had a Freudian slip, as he tells us about the central business of the Australian Therapeutic Goods Administration.
He clearly fell foul of selling a product that purported to have a therapeutic benefit, and that's very much the central business or the core business of the Therapeutic Goods Administration.
Many of us suspected that's what they've been up to. And now, for the icing on the cake, I can disclose my own firing from the medical TV show The Checkup, based on accusations of misinformation against me. Obviously, I know what the TV people told me, but what I didn't know was that there was an official Information Act release out in the open disclosing the chain of events leading to my sacking. If you go to the website, you can see that concerned New Zealand citizen David Johnston wanted information on the vetting and credibility of doctors appearing on The Checkup. Unfortunately, it seems the IT team might have been out for lunch when General Counsel and Corporate Affairs Director at TVNZ, Brent McAnulty, authorised the response. Now, in his release, which mentions a YouTube channel, he states, one doctor who featured in Series 1, but is not appearing in Season 2, currently being filmed, and names and gender references have been removed under Section 9(2)A of the Act. That means withheld to protect the identity of the person. But wow, Brent, you couldn't have made it more obvious that you were talking about Dr. Sam Bailey. Now, that doesn't bother me, of course, because I'm happy to stand behind all of my content. But I think Brent's other disclosures may annoy some people. Uh-oh! If you download Brent's publicly released document, fortunately for us, he's included the hyperlinks to all of the email addresses so everyone can see who was involved. Firstly, there was a complaint from Sean Hogan, a cohort and assessment manager at Otago University, who appears to have qualifications in social work. In any case, Sean has wet the bed over one of my videos and then has a go at the science being discussed. He thinks that the PCR is a good screening test. No, it's a molecular amplification tool that has no established diagnostic specificity for any alleged COVID clinical application. Then he explains that every case in the current cluster has also been fully genomically linked, which of course means the virus DNA has been analysed and found to link back to a known case. Impossible with a false positive. Firstly, the alleged virus is supposed to contain RNA, not DNA, so he's off to a bad start. Secondly, it's not clear he knows how genomic sequencing works. No one has established the provenance of these sequences, and he simply parrots assumptions about in silico hypothetical constructions. These are from unpurified specimens containing tens of millions of unique short RNA sequences, none of them proven to be viral in origin. His assertion that cases are linked and it is impossible for them to be false positives confirms he doesn't understand the methodology being employed, which can certainly produce these results. No virus required. Probably best for him to go back to the start and look up the definition of virus rather than parroting media releases. Sean makes some further allegations, provides no references for his claims, and concludes that I'm spreading misinformation. Anyway, Sean's complaint gets to the executive team at TVNZ pronto, and a conversation takes place between Rachel Howard, General Manager Corporate Communications, and Vicky Keogh, Commissioner Factual and Unscripted Comedy. These two ladies, who appear to have no medical or scientific background, then produce their own unscripted comedy. Vicky suggests to the team that they will have a chat with Sam and ask her to remove either the entire video or the last part of it, which is the bit they've identified as most problematic. I think that would be the part where I stated I'm not personally interested in any corona jab. Seemingly this is a problem for a state-funded broadcaster. By the way, my feelings on the shot haven't changed. They don't think Sam will have a problem with removing the content in the context, and I've asked them to discuss with Sam how she may proceed in the future when posting content of this nature. Of what nature, Vicky? Rachel chimes in by saying there needs to be a full audit of the YouTube channel. Well, it's actually my channel and you're not the appointed auditor. She goes on, removing this video is the minimum step, but there is still huge reputation risk to be giving platform to a doctor dabbling in COVID denial. What? Giving me a platform? Many of my videos get more views than TVNZ Productions. I agree there's a reputational risk, but the risk is to me, with these anti-science executives attempting to pull the strings on my work.
Wait, you're telling me to dance?
Vicky responds, "Are you saying the entire video should come down? If so, I'll ask them to do that." Who is them? Is that me? In any case, soon after this, a representative from the production team called me and asked me to remove the video. My response, "I stand behind all my content and I'm not going to dance for you." Looking back, I'm now happy that these people, in a way, helped show me the true path I needed to take. Public TV show executives and the audience cheering on their anti-science and contrived messaging was not something I can be a part of. My own content is free from their artificial restraints, and departing the TV show strengthened my resolve to leave no stone unturned when investigating science and medicine, even if the findings go against the establishment and how I was trained. So, with regards to allegations of me spreading misinformation as a TV presenter, all I can see is a case of the other parties simply parroting what they were told and not being able to analyse the material themselves. As this feels threatening to them, they seek safety by attempting to suppress anyone challenging their particular worldview. Obviously, misinformation is a word thrown around by those who are pushing a narrative. Real scientists produce their own work and don't cry misinformation when someone says something they don't agree with. At the end of the day, be very suspicious when you hear the term COVID misinformation, because none of the institutions actively promoting the term can define it and don't seem too keen to engage in discussions about it. Perhaps with these things that have mysterious definitions, we can seek an explanation from an expert in the craft.
And when you see those messages, remember that unless you hear it from us, it is not the truth.
To help sustain my channel in this time of censorship, please support my work on Subscribestar. Link is in the description. So that we don't lose touch, please find me at drsambailey.com and sign up for my free newsletter.